Welcome to the December 2024 layout update for the Susquehanna and Hudson River Railway. This month we've installed scenery and we've made some changes to the valances, lighting, and we even visited Burr for an operating session on Burrlington Northern Railway. My son Laddrick helped me this month by putting the sculpt-a-mold over the styrofoam that I've had in place for well over a year now. So we're slowly getting rid of the snowstorm in the Poconos. Here I am doing the process of beginning this scenery. I began by putting earth-colored latex paint from the lumber yard. I put it down over top of the sculpt-a-mold once the sculpt-a-mold dried. It takes several days for sculpt-a-mold to dry. The areas where I was having a rock cut in the front, the beaded foam, you cannot carve that, so I put a thin layer of molding plaster over top of that beaded foam, and then I carved stratified rock into the molding plaster, and then I applied a light coat of Mars black, very thin, across the rock face to color the plaster initially and soak into the cracks with the black. And then I used Vallejo grays, different grays. I think I had 6 different grays there, and I just kept going back and forth between them and dipping my brush in water, and plenty of water on there, and just letting them all run around and mix in with each other to verify the colors on the rock face. And I followed this up by putting Woodland Scenics turf blend and green grass blend over top of the paint. After I sprayed down the Woodland Scenics ground foam with isopropyl alcohol, I next applied my glue. To make my glue, I use a mixture of 50% Liquitex or Golden Matte Medium and 50% water and a drop of dishwashing detergent to break up the water's tendency to bead. I then used a turkey baster to apply this matte medium diluted glue mixture onto the ground foam. Once the matte medium dried from that I applied across the ground foam, I started the next stage, which was to take straight out of the bottle matte medium, brush it over top of the Woodland Scenics foam, and over top of this I applied Woodland Scenics bush material, just big clumps of ground foam. I had 3 different colors. I mixed them all together into a container. And then I just randomly picked out of that container and started putting them in place. They pretty well rolled down the hill, gravity at work. As I was taking them out, I was trying to push them in place onto the matte medium glue. And I just was making a mess as I was doing it. Clean up later. After I finished putting brush on, I applied some 4mm static grass first over top of matte medium, applied on top of the ground foam. And then I followed this up with 7mm matte medium. Again, applied across the matte medium that I had put onto the side of the hill. As you can see here, I left spaces with no grass when I put the 4mm grass on, and then I filled those spaces in with the matte medium, and then I sprinkled on the 7mm grass. 7mm grass I had was way too green, so I had to follow this up, and once it was dry, and change the color on it. To tone down that dark green color of the 7mm grass, I used what I call the Boomer effect. Watching Boomer's diorama, I did what Boomer would do. I used Desert Yellow XF59 Tamiya acrylic paint. I thinned it down about 10% paint, 90% isopropyl alcohol, and with 20 pounds of pressure into my airbrush, I airbrushed the color Desert Yellow into my static grass, and there's what the scene looked like when I was finished airbrushing. Pretty happy with it. And next I added trees that I had made from rabbit bush with Woodland Scenics and Scenic Express leaves on them. I have a video on the process how I did that. Our next project was to take these two 2x4s at the end of the peninsula that were holding up the second level for like the last year, and they were replaced with 2 rods by Lou and Dave. They're replacing that the corner brace at this end of the peninsula with another 1/4-inch brace. And Jim, he came over here and he was helping me while Lou and Dave were busy putting the braces in, and we were going around and we rehung the lights above the framework for the valance, and to get them out of sight, so when you're standing in front of the valance you can't see the lights anymore. Then my son Laddrick and we went down to Burr Stewart's house in Seattle for an operating session on his Burrlington Northern Railroad. Burr has his entire basement filled with a HO scale layout. It's 1973, if I remember correctly, in King County, and it's Snohomish County, Washington, here in the Puget Sound. That's Scott switching at the Burr's Interbay Yard. Scott's a retired Santa Fe engineman. And we see a train going into staging above Interbay. Here we see the Interbay switch engine that Scott's running, make a move at the west end of Interbay Yard. And I was a yard master at Bayside. This was my Bayside switch engine. The main line comes right down the middle of Bayside Yard, and there is 3 yard tracks on each side of the main line. And there's Burr standing in the aisle there. There's about 12 guys at the operating session. It was a lot of fun. Everybody worked well together. In addition to Burlington Northern, Burr has his Pacific Northwest extension of the Rio Grande narrow gauge running into his layout. Here's one of his railroad's excursion trains. It's powered by a White Pass based diesel that was a 3D printed casting on an Atlas RSD5 chassis that had the wheel gauge narrowed to a 3-foot gauge. And Burr also has Milwaukee Road. He has Milwaukee Road staging yard, and several Milwaukee Road trains make appearance on the layout and interchange with his Burlington Northern. Here we see Scott switching at the east end of Interbay Yard. And this is the engine service tracks at Burr's Interbay Yard. West end of Interbay Yard has an auto facility. This is Bayside Yard, where I was working. And the Bayside Yard has an engine terminal with a future roundhouse. Here's a train pulling around on what's called the Highline. above Bayside Yard. This train's coming out of Delta Yard. And here we see the train climbing up into the Cascades, heading towards Cascade Tunnel. And the staging yard that's beyond the portal of Cascade Tunnel. And this is a switch engine working at the west end of Stacy Yard in Seattle. And a switch engine, the main body of Stacy Yard. It's on the scale track, track 8. So he's pulling out of track 8 and down the south lead. And above Stacy Yard is the yard at Burlington. You can see a train making a set out at Burlington. Couple of photos at Stacy Yard. Next, the Burlington turn is returning back to Seattle, and it's making a set out at Bayside. The Burlington turn's completed set out, and he's going to put his power back on his train and head out of town and head for Interbay Yard and tie up. On my layout, I've been playing around with the buildings, and I took all the factory buildings out that were in the area between Richard's Yard, which you can see here. That's the future site of Richard's Yard, I guess I should say, and Shonersville. And I'm making this more of a residential area. It's a plaster building from Art Deco. It's a brewery kit that I'm going to put there at the end of the neighborhood. Got to have plenty of beer for the workers. And those two duplex houses I scratch built them probably about 25 years ago. Just they're based on my memories of housing in Pennsylvania. Didn't even have any plans. And then from the housing area, we're going to go on into the more industrial area of Shonersville. And the blue tape is where the Slatington branch is going to go through the backdrop there and on into the town of Slatington, and it's slate quarry on the other side of the wall. And I've been taking walls from buildings that had upstairs in the attic and a Concord brewery kit that I had, and just putting them up there in the backdrop, moving things around. Starting to like the way it's shaping up now. And this part of Shonersville is basically the same as what it has been. Well, that's it this for the month of December, folks. With the help of Lou, Dave, Jim, and Laddrick, I've gotten a lot done this month. And next month we've got some more plans to make some improvements next month. We're sort of falling into work one week and run trains the next week schedule here. So anyways, this is Bob saying goodbye, and thank you for watching, and remember to give me a thumbs up like here on YouTube, and to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And also, if you hit that bell up there in the corner, it'll notify you when the next video is posted up to the channel. So until next video, this is Bob saying goodbye, and remember, model railroading is the best hobby in the world. We got such a variety of things we can do. We got so many skills we get to learn as model railroaders. So let's go out there, let's run some trains, let's build something, let's have some fun. Bye.